Welcome back to the More Than Your Age podcast. Boy, does it feel good to be back and releasing new episodes. For those of you who are new, I am officially back after having my sweet baby girl in May. I've taken this summer to enjoy time with my family and travel and really just spend as much time outside as we can. It's been a great season of rest and renewal with our precious new life. I've been looking forward to this week's episode for a while. I actually recorded this episode with my guest, Kim Rahir, back in April 2024 with plans to release the show in May, but my baby ended up arriving earlier and I hadn't edited the episode just yet. So I decided to pivot and release Kim's episode as my first episode for the fall season. And my friends, it is a good one. In today's episode, we meet Kim, who shares how her life changed dramatically after a serious diagnosis. Despite these health challenges, Kim remained resilient, and she learned to appreciate the small moments and let go of unnecessary stress. Kim fought for her right to make informed treatment decisions and eventually stopped lifelong injections. Through strength training, Kim reclaimed her physical and mental health through weightlifting at the age of 55. I can't wait for you to hear the entire story as Kim shares her inspiring journey of overcoming MS and finding strength in unexpected places. Enjoy the show. Joining me on the More Than Your Age podcast is health coach and European Masters Weightlifting Champion, Kim Rahir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for the great work that you do.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Well, to the listeners, Kim is speaking to us all the way from Madrid, Spain, and it is 6 o'clock her time, 11 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock p.m. And so what an honor to just get to speak and get to do this, to speak with somebody across the world. You know, we're both in two different time zones in two different countries, so I love that we have this chance to do this. And Kim, your story has been very intriguing to me as you've endured a lot in your recent years, and you haven't let that stop you from pursuing life-changing opportunities. And so we are going to get to that. And before we get to that, I do want to just talk about your career that you started out in journalism. Why did you decide to pursue that career field?
That's an interesting question. I remember the time when I was at uni and I was wondering what I was going to do, and I was hesitating between two things. One was to work in, continuing education for adults, and another was to be a journalist. And I think it's because I have this curiosity. I love talking to people. I love discovering stories. I really love stories. And I think that's what sort of tipped the balance. I just wanted to go out there, discover the world. And at the time, journalism still was also about helping the citizen to be informed, to have good quality information, and to make informed decisions when it comes to voting and things. We're not going to talk about politics, but I think information and the role of information nowadays has changed. It's become more of a commodity, and that's also what helped me then let go of that work, which I really loved and enjoyed.
Yeah, it is interesting just hearing you say that journalism really has changed drastically in the recent years, just with the access to social media and other forms of media, and just like media everywhere, all over the place. When you first originally started in journalism, what was your route, and what did you focus on throughout your career?
I started in a news agency, Newswire, actually, which is Agence France Presse, which is a French newswire, but they are a worldwide agency, so they have services in the five big languages. I'm sorry. I'm not sure, because I know they have Arabic and Spanish and English and French, and they have German. So I started with the German service of a newswire, which meant 24/7 coverage, news coming in all the time. I love the fast-paced environment, and you have to make fast decisions. Also, you have to be able to say, okay, this story is big, we're going to take it for the German market, or this story is not so important, maybe it's a biggie in in the USA, but the Germans won't be so interested. So it was fast paced. It was, also enough depth to not become super superficial. And I worked with them for years. And then also going on assignments, reporting from war-torn countries and stuff. It was really very exciting. And it always, because it's a newswire, it always had this element of speed, which gives it like a really nice kick, because you can't spend days thinking about what you're going to write. You have to, think and then fire.
Wow. So did you mainly focus on writing in your journalism?
Yes, I did a bit of video reporting towards the end, where I went out and shot some videos. And that was, when the internet was big and everything had changed and video had become so important. But most of the time I was writing, yes.
Okay. And do you recall, just in your span of your career, a moment, or I guess, a lead up to where journalism did start shifting? And like you said, it kind of took away the enjoyment and the love that you had for the art of journalism?
I think there were two moments. The first one, I worked as a freelancer after working for the Newswires, as an employee for 5 years, I think. Got married and started traveling the world. So from various countries, I worked as a freelancer, just went out, looked for the information, the story, and sent it back. And after doing that for 10 years, I got found employment again. I was coming back to the news agency where I first worked when I started out. And when I came back into this structured, like supervised and managed environment, I realized that things had changed, that standards had changed, accents of what we were going to talk about had changed, and I felt less engaged, less committed. Let me put it this way: I don't really want to judge, but I can say that for me, it didn't feel quite as engaging anymore. And then because we moved around all the time, after a while we moved again. I had to start working as a freelancer again. And then I worked quite a bit with TV. And that was like the moment when I realized that much of the information that we are putting out there is too superficial. It's too shortened. It's too summed up and too black and white. And I mean, TV probably has to do that because they don't have much time. Airtime is expensive. You can only say one sentence to explain a brand new country to the audience. And that for me was sort of like the last straw. And I thought, no, this is not me. This is not for me. It's also a skill to be able to, put the information into very, very few words. But the depth that gets lost was always painful for me. So I realized that this wasn't for me anymore.
Wow. And what a expansive career too. I just like you said, you were traveling so much and reporting what was going on in the world and the news, wars. And I mean, I would just imagine you saw a lot that probably really affected your life and who you were and are as a person. Well, I know too, in the midst of all of this, there was a point where you ended up developing a syndrome that put you in a wheelchair. What happened here?
We were in Germany, and I was actually working in this employment that I just mentioned. So I had come back from freelancing, and I had a full-time job. I had a real career, and I was like on top of the world. I thought, yes, finally I have, all the perks that come with full employment. I'm working as a journalist. I had 3 kids. The oldest was like 10 years, and I worked full-time. And I thought now I have proven to everyone that you can have a family and that you can have a career, and that you can. I was brought up with this idea that you can either be a good mother or have a career, but that you couldn't be both. And I always wanted to show that, of course, we can have both. So that sort of felt great. And I think it might have been a bit stressful too. Maybe I didn't pay a lot of attention to my health. I was picking up my kids from school one day, and I realized that I was seeing double. And that was like super scary, right? I was 45 at the time, and then, sometimes when you get a little bit of back pain or a headache or something, you can deny your way out of this and think, oh, okay, I'm going to be okay tomorrow. When you see double, there's something wrong in your brain, right? So I went to see a doctor right away, was sent to hospital, and then I spent 6 weeks there, lots and lots of tests over and over, because they couldn't really put the finger on what it was. Because after the eyesight going cross, they noticed, and I noticed, that my legs were getting away from me. And after 3 weeks in the hospital, I was completely paralyzed. From the hip downward, I couldn't move a thing. I couldn't wiggle a toe. It was so scary. And what was scary also is that the doctors said, well, this is weird, because the symptoms of the syndrome didn't sort of fit in with each other. I know it doesn't make much sense, because syndromes are just like a collection of symptoms, but they do have a system to order them. And the cross-eyed thing and the paralysis thing just usually didn't go together, something like this. So they didn't know what to tell me. And I was thinking, please give me something. Tell me what it is. I don't care what it is. Let it be herpes, or all these hypotheses that they had. It was after I had left the hospital that they finally decided that what I had was a Guillain-Barré syndrome, and that's a one-off. So it comes and it goes. It came quite violently, because within 3 weeks I was really unable to walk, and it took a lot of time to get back to normal. But the idea was that this was a one-off. So after a year of treatment and learning to walk again and everything, I was given a clean bill of health. But, that was not the end of the story. But I, maybe want to take a break here and ask a bit more about what happened.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, you're at the hospital. You said you were there for 6 weeks. And after 3 weeks paralyzed, at what point, why were you released when you were released? And then they say, oh, well, we think it's this one thing. How did that unfold?
Yes. So they tried all kinds of treatments. And this is something, with this, they knew it was autoimmune. They knew something was going wrong in my immune system was making errors. It was attacking like the nerves that govern the muscles of the eye. That's why I was cross-eyed. And then it was the sensitive nerves in my lower body. So I couldn't feel a thing. I couldn't wiggle a toe. So they gave me all sorts of infusions, like corticosteroids, and then immune globulins. I can't say that in English. And because they were kind of desperate, trying all kinds of things, when I felt that my sensitivity was coming back in my legs very slowly, it was hard to tell what had caused this, because they had tried various things. It could have been one or the other. But I was getting the sensitivity back very little by little. I could then, lying down, I could lift a leg. I still couldn't walk, because when you have no sensitivity in your lower body, you get no information back into your brain, where you are. Where are you standing? Are you not standing? And these weird sensations can be really scary. But I was able to stand up and take a step or two by leaning on stuff. And because it was just the day before Christmas, they let me go with a wheelchair. And I was so happy to be at home. And it got better from there. But it took something like 7 months for me to be able to walk again normally. Wheelchair first, then crutches, then one crutch, and then walk normally again.
Wow. Now, when you were in the hospital, cognitively, were you able to assess what was going on? Like, did that correlate as far as what was happening with the rest of your body and your brain, or was that completely separate?
I was terrified. And I kept wondering, what was going to happen. Was it going to get better or not? Was there any explanation for this? I was also quite disappointed, because that's the thing with autoimmune diseases. It's like your body's betraying you, right? It's like something's going on, and you don't even feel what's going on. I mean, you feel the result of the autoimmune attack, but that your immune system is eating away at your nerves. You have no idea of that. You just all of a sudden realize that you have weird sensations or that you can't move something. So I was terrified, and I had this feeling that it was like inside of me, in my soul, there was like a door, a tiny door that was open or ajar, and behind that door was only blackness. Like, it was so scary, and I just wanted to shut that door again. I wanted to, look away. I didn't want to see that blackness, that darkness, and I kept pestering the docs, and when can I? Yeah, and I was, trying to make it sort of light-hearted when I was actually really desperate. And I said, when can I go running again and stuff? And then they couldn't answer. They said, well, you're going to get better, but right now we don't really know. So I was really terrified. I was lucky because someone came and looked after my kids. My husband came to see me every day. It's hard to describe. The hardest thing for me, actually, and that's something that I felt very, very acutely, was that I felt that I lost my humanity, my dignity, my autonomy. In a hospital, you don't decide anything. You don't decide anything, not when there's someone in your room, not when the light is on, not when the light is off, not when you wake up, not when you go to sleep. And I was paralyzed. I couldn't even decide when I wanted to go to the shower or to the toilet. And that's something, that memory that stayed with me, this feeling of being a thing. So I, like cognitively, I had a very good perception of what was going on, and I was fighting to deal with that emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine. And then, you get home and you still have this long path to recovery. And in the back of your mind too, like you're thinking, you're dealing with exactly what you just explained. This loss of independence, this loss of who you are, you're a completely different woman than who you were, 6 weeks, 7 weeks prior to that. When you did get home right before Christmas, leading up to the next 7 months, what were the steps that you did have to take to improve, not just physically, but then mentally as well?
One thing that helped me was, I came home for Christmas. I hadn't bought a tree. I hadn't decorated a tree. I hadn't bought any presents. I hadn't prepared anything. And still Christmas was happening. Everything was there. So big lesson there, a bit painful maybe, but for me it has been liberating, was, okay, I can be out of it. Life will still go on. It will go on for my kids, for my family. Things will still be, the world keeps on turning. So that, for me, it's sobering, because many women, especially, when you have kids and a family and a job, you keep thinking, oh my God, if I'm not here, everything is going to go to hell and nothing is going to work. And I'm sort of so essential. I'm irreplaceable. So that was a big lesson. You're totally replaceable. And anybody of us can be out of it, from one day to the next. In a way, that was also liberating, because I felt that I didn't have to do everything anymore, which is really great. And then for my mental health, I actually focused on just one day at a time. That was, for me, I think that was the game changer. Because when you have an illness and you don't know where it's leading, when you look at the big picture, when you look far ahead, you scare yourself to death, because you don't know. You can say that, that's the same for everyone. We all don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow, and that's true. But when you have had this sort of wake-up call or this shot across the bow, and you know that something is wrong, or, with your health, something is going on with your body, it's much much more tangible and much scarier. And I decided that I was just going to focus on each single day, make the most of that. Like when I couldn't walk properly, I would try to find something that would give me joy. I would, wait for my kids to come home from school and spend time with them and have fun and try to help them not see me as so fragile and vulnerable. And focusing on one day at a time, I think, got me through this time, because you don't scare yourself with the big picture. You do just a little bit, and that way you get better. And that's how I got better without being like totally paralyzed by fear.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great perspective of just realizing, like, I just need to focus on today, because if I look so far down the future, I can really scare myself with what could happen when we're not even guaranteed of the negative or the positive, of just being able to focus where you are right there. I think that's a good takeaway in that moment. When we spoke previously, you shared with me that you became a better mom and were much more patient in the midst of all of this. So how did this situation allow you to have more patience and become a better mom?
It was this. It's a mix. First of all, the insight that you don't have to do anything. This lesson that I mentioned. It can relax you. It takes a lot of pressure off. And I think when you're impatient or stressed out with your kids or your family, it's always because you feel under pressure and you worry that things will go wrong. Things had gone terribly wrong for me, and still my family life continued. So that took a lot of pressure off. And then I remember before I got ill, working full time, looking after 3 kids, a home, all sorts of things. Many parts of my day felt like chores, like making dinner, clearing dinner away, watching over homework. When I was in the hospital, all I wished was to be able to do that again. All I wanted was to be able to stand up and do the dishes. And that taught me to be grateful for every moment. And it puts everything in perspective. So, your kid comes home with a bad grade or something, you know that it's not important. You don't freak out. I really, because I actually couldn't walk and I was just like, stuck, paralyzed in the hospital, I knew that there are important things in life, but most of the things that we get worked up about in life are not it. They are not important. And that's something I understood, and that I think I really became a cooler mom, gave my kids much more leeway, trusting them, not wanting to control everything, because I've just had this like big lesson that I couldn't control everything. And overall, that's why today I'm actually grateful for this experience. It sounds weird, but I think it really changed my perspective of what's important in life, and then focus on that.
Yeah, it is amazing how the hardships or the difficult things that happen to us in life really put a whole new perspective on the way that we view the world that we're living in and our current situation. Just even Kim, I thank you for saying just that how when you were in the hospital, all you wanted to do was do the dishes and clean and help the homework. And, it's like, it was just, it really just spoke to me and touched me in this moment of thinking like these mundane tasks are significant, especially when you've lost everything. And so I just appreciate you saying that. Well, I also know that after a year of your treatment, and correct me if I'm wrong with the timing, you were then diagnosed with MS. So how did this come about? How did you know something was different to where, compared to what you had just experienced, to where you needed further diagnosis?
Yeah, that was like the real low blow, because I had treatment, I was given a clean bill of health, and I thought I have a new shot at life. And with all my newfound perspective and doing things differently and being less pressurized, less under stress, I wanted to do things differently and really grab that second shot at life. And We moved again from Germany to France, and I just felt my left hand going numb one day. And I knew the sensation, when there's something wrong with your nerves. I knew something was wrong. Tests again, doctors, and then they told me it was different. That was this time an attack of the immune system on the white matter in the nerves. And if it happened again, I would be an MS patient. That would be then officially MS. And I spent a year hoping that it wouldn't happen again. I could still tell myself that, I was going to be okay and that this was just a freak accident or something. But it happened again. It was very, very mild. It was hardly noticeable. I only noticed it because I did a weird yoga pose on the bedroom floor and I felt a tingling in my spine and I knew this wasn't good. So, back to the doctors and they said, okay, second episode, this is MS and you need lifelong treatment. I think that was even darker because I had a diagnosis. Before I was I didn't know what it was. They couldn't really tell me for a long time. This time I had a verdict and, it wasn't good. It was clear that something was wrong with me and that I was in for, I don't know, a lifetime of treatment, of maybe relapses, this time the door in my soul with the darkness behind it, it was wide open. And I really had to, get all my inner strength together to not let myself look at the future. That's something I had learned before, focus on today. It was a big effort, but I think it's what helped me at that time.
Yeah. How old were you at this time?
I was 49 or something. I remember my 50th birthday. I had just started the lifelong treatment that I was prescribed. And it's something that makes you feel horrible. Everybody reacts differently. It gave me flu-like symptoms. So when you're about to get the flu, you're so tired, your limbs are heavy, your head hurts. And that's what it gave me. And I remember my 50th birthday, we were in Paris in my favorite restaurant, and I was just miserable because I felt so horrible.
Yeah. And also in the midst of all this too, were you still freelancing as a journalist, or did you kind of take time off to focus on your health?
At that time, I was still freelancing as a journalist, yeah.
Okay. So able to work as you were able, pretty much.
Yes, and I didn't have a lot of damage from these relapses, from these MS episodes. My left hand is numb to this day. The second episode was really mild, but I had no serious damage because especially the second relapse we found out right away because I was so attentive, and then you get an infusion and the inflammation stops. So I was not too bad physically. I'm going to put it this way. I mean, with something like this, you do feel sort of weak and fragile, but I think it's more in your head. I could walk normally and everything, which I hadn't been able to do with my first story. So I was still sort of grateful for not having damage.
Yeah. Well, and I'd like to hear too more about the treatments, because you said it would give you flu-like symptoms. How often were you going in for treatments? And then you told me too that you had to fight with your doctor for your treatments as well. I'd like to hear more about that too.
Yeah. I actually fought with my doctor because I didn't want the treatment. So he had this standard, really close to knee-jerk reaction, and I know it's just standard practice. He said, "Okay, second relapse. This is MS. You need lifelong treatment." And he was just sort of writing the prescription and wanted to send me on my way. And I said, "Hey, hang on a minute. What do you mean lifelong? Can we talk about this? Because my second relapse was so mild. Does that not mean that I'm getting better, that it's not as bad as it was before, and it is maybe it's not going to happen again?" And he was not used to someone talking to him, talking back and asking so many questions, but he was patient. I mean, in the beginning I grilled him for I don't know how long, and then he got a little bit impatient. But it was something, and I think it's because I had been in the hospital before and felt so powerless. And when you accept lifelong treatment, you give your power away again. It's like, you're not going to be able to live without this thing. And if you are fine, if you're healthy, you will never know, has your body healed or is it because of the treatment? So you will never be able to stop. And I know from other people too who were prescribed lifelong treatment for other situations, all we want is, to live normally and not have to rely on this thing. But at the end, I had to give in, and I started injecting myself 3 times a week. That's how this works. Then the medication has to be kept in the fridge. You have to, get it from the pharmacy once a month. And it's a whole set of new routines that you have to adopt. And the injection sites also become very sore. They became in my case. Not everybody has a reaction. I got like really big red spots where I injected myself, and then the skin, just imagine, week in, week out. You pick a number of sites, but in the end, injecting yourself at the same sites over and over again. So the skin reacts like very angrily. And it wasn't fun. I had to give in. I'm not sure if they're still using this treatment now, because after a while, I actually was allowed to stop. But if someone has to treat themselves like this, it doesn't sound like much when you hear it, but it's actually it's a big loss of quality of life.
Yeah, I bet. Why were you allowed to stop those treatments?
I was doing really well. I started, and that was right after I had been prescribed this first treatment. I started strength training, getting stronger, build muscle, and my whole health changed. I became like really strong and confident. My mental health improved massively because I was just feeling so strong. And I had no relapse for years. Stuff that I had been told, was damaged forever. Like nothing terrible, but like small reflexes, like the thing when you hit the front of your knee and then your leg shoots out. That reflex I had lost it because my nerves had been damaged. And one doctor said, that's never going to come back. It all came back. And when I went to my checkups with my neurologist, it was always, oh yeah, okay. They didn't even bother too much, with the stuff where they show you the finger and you have to follow it and walk in a line and stand with your eyes closed. It was obvious that I was getting better. And we moved to Spain, where we are now. I found a new neurologist. He prescribed the same treatment. And then after 2 or 3 years, I think it was after 3 years, we were going on a camping trip to Canada, and I thought, oh my God, I had, to put this medication already, to get it on the plane, it should be in the fridge. You have to ask the flight attendants, can I put something in the fridge? They're going to say no. And then camping and then injecting yourself, I thought this really doesn't work very well. So I said to my doctor, is it okay if I suspend the treatment for 3 weeks? Do you think that's like a danger, or is that a problem? And he said, if you want to stop for good, I'm going to support you. And I said, hell yes, what? That's amazing. Incredible. So, I called my husband. I could cry now when I remember that moment. We both cried on the phone because it was like a second time I had been given another shot at just living the life of a healthy person. And he told me that actually they weren't quite sure about the effectiveness of that treatment anymore, which I, to this day, love him for saying that, because he was not afraid of sort of admitting that maybe what was prescribed wasn't perfect. And it was important for me to know that, because it gave me the confidence to think, yeah, maybe it wasn't the treatment that made me better. Maybe I'm really, like good now and can do without it. And I think this optimism and this confidence plays a huge role in how you recover. And that was 6.5 years ago, and I've been without relapse, without symptoms, and without treatment.
Wow, that's amazing. What a phenomenal, I mean, just that point of just being phenomenal, just that you're getting a healthy life back. Well, when all this happened, like you said, you moved to Spain and then you did join a gym. Why was it important for you to join a gym? And then you also told me that you didn't want anyone to know about your MS diagnosis. So why did you decide that you weren't going to share that with people?
I didn't want the identity of a sick person. I just didn't want to wear that hat, because it somehow predefines your relationship with people, right? They meet you and you tell them, I have MS. They're going to have a whole set of connotations that are going to be triggered in their brain, and they're just not going to treat you or talk to you like they would if they don't know that. And I also didn't want myself to think of me as a sick person. I wanted to just live a normal life. It goes back to this craving that normality and dreaming of doing the dishes. I just wanted to be normal. So I didn't share that with my new friends in Spain. I felt better, and I also, for example, when I got those flu-like symptoms from the injections, I just took over-the-counter drugs to fight those symptoms, because I wanted normal days. I didn't want to, stay at home and be miserable on the days that I'd injected myself. I wanted life, and I wanted life as a normal person, and I wanted to become strong. I think this really goes back to the hospital when I was so debilitated and felt like I'd lost my personality. I felt that physical strength was so important. I never wanted to lose that again. I wanted to feel confident and good about my body, in my body, being able to do things, and not only then walk and do the dishes, but just be exceptionally strong. Stand tall, carry myself with confidence and ease. That it was like a deep desire. I needed to build myself back up. I think that's where this came from. And I went to the gym, got myself a nice book, one of the first that said women should lift heavy, and then I started lifting.
So you started lifting. I want to hear about the positive changes of your mental health when you did start weightlifting and how that contributed to it.
This is something I really want to shout it from the rooftops. When you become physically strong, and when you train, you don't even have to become physically strong in the first place. You just train for strength. Something changes in your mind. You get a different outlook. You start feeling good about yourself. And I think it's linked to, because I had felt betrayed by my body, right? So when I train, I ask my body to do things, and my body does those things. So there's this new confidence again, this new trust in what your body can do, which gives you so much inner security. You do a workout, you feel good about yourself afterwards. And I think this goes even deeper, because when you train for strength, what do? Actually, you overcome resistance. That's what it is. Gravity resists what you want to do with a barbell or with a dumbbell, whatever it is, and you have to overcome that resistance. And by training, you teach your brain and your body both that you are able to overcome resistance. It becomes like something that you get used to. And I think this carries over into other areas of your life, because, the brain is very complex, but it's also quite simple. And I think when you encounter resistance in other areas of your life, you have this memory in your fibers, like literally in your muscle fibers, in your bones. You know that resistance is something that you can overcome because you've done it before. And that way you face obstacles differently. It's not like you become sort of invincible and, can do whatever you want and get everything that you desire. But you don't have this first reaction to resistance where you withdraw or think, oh my God, okay, I'm not going to try. Because resistance is there to be overcome. I've done it before, so I'm going to give it a shot. And I think this is like a huge shift in your mind that helps you, approach life differently.
Yeah. Well, to kind of go back to what you were doing before journalism, you had always wanted to coach and teach exercise, and so you did finally make that decision to leave journalism and pursue a new career. You said, if you don't do what you want to do while you're here, nobody is going to do that for you. So you said journalism doesn't change the world like someone who turns their life around to become healthy, which is exactly what you had to do and to endure that. Could you explain your thoughts on this a little bit more?
Yes, because the way my life had turned out and my health had developed, I started thinking that I was onto something, that there was this way of getting better that needed to be shared with the world, because it's so simple. You don't even need a gym for that. It's a very simple way of improving your health. It's like a Swiss knife. And I thought, I want to share that. I had, this feeling that if happiness can be improved or increased like this, women need to know. They need to find out. And because I was so disappointed or maybe a little bit disenchanted with journalism, and I had really turned to training and exercise and then nutrition as part of this. It was actually the year when my doctor told me that I could stop my treatment that I took the plunge, and I said, I'm going to stop journalism, took all the exams, the personal training, and all the things that you need to learn, and started coaching.
Wow. When okay, actually, I want to get back to that, but I do want to jump around because I can't remember where this was in your timeline specifically. Excuse me. I want to hear about your decision to compete as an Olympic weightlifter, and I want you to share the story of how this came to be, and the story of like when one of the other health coaches said, I want to see you do this, and your response of, oh my gosh, am I too old? And kind of where this falls in the timeline of everything that you just shared as well. It's a neat story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I stopped my treatment after 3 years living in Spain. I was still going to train in a commercial gym, and I worked with a PT who one day said, "Oh, do you want to try Olympic weightlifting?" And I said, yeah, why not? Sounds cool. My memories of this were watching the Olympic Games with my dad and watching, like overweight guys in weird leotards lifting stuff. But I thought, yeah, why not? And so he showed me the movements. They're extremely challenging. I totally sucked at them. But they are a mix of technique and strength that sort of hooked me. And I did that for a year with him in a commercial gym, which is absolutely crazy because in Olympic weightlifting, yes, you want to get the bar overhead, but then you want to drop it. And you can't drop barbells in a commercial gym. You would ruin the weights and the floor and everything. So we sort of muddled along, did that for a year. And then I was so hooked that I said, okay, I'm going to join a real weightlifting gym. And I did that. So, yeah, I left the commercial gym where all, my friends were and everything. So the pull was really big. I really wanted to do this. And I think it's really because of this this challenging combination of strength and technique. So not one lift is like the next. And every time you have to refocus and give it your best. Went to this weightlifting gym, like the real thing, no mirrors, no music, and started taking classes there. And after 2 weeks, I mean, like really 2 weeks, someone walked up to me and said, "Hey, Kim, great to have you here. Do you want to compete?" And I said, and this is, this is what really fits in so nicely with the motto of your show. I said, "What are you talking about? Do you know how old I am?" and I was 55 at the time. And then they said, "We don't care. We have other women your age and they're competing." And I said, "Well then, okay, let's give this a shot." And I would never have, I'm sure now, in my 30s, I wouldn't have said yes. I would have thought, oh my God, this is just another thing on my agenda, more pressure, something else to do, that's going to stress me out. And maybe without my history of illness and everything, wouldn't have said yes either. But there I thought, oh my God, look at this thing that life is throwing at you. Let's give that a shot. And let's just try this. And one of the best decisions I've ever made, because competing makes you feel very alive.
Wow, I love too how the coach came up to you and said, "Hey, what do you after 2 weeks? What do you think about competing?"
After two.
Yeah, and your response was, "Oh, a woman of my age, or I'm too old for that." And they're saying, "No, you're not. Like, there's other women doing that." So I love that this outside, and I don't know how old they were, but just them looking at you and not thinking that was a problem at all. And then there you go, and you compete. And then, are you still competing right now too?
Absolutely, yes.
I love it.
I'm training I train 3 times a week, and the first we have a league, like regional meets here in Madrid, and the first one was already in March. There's another one at the end of April, and then I'm preparing the European Championship in June, which is going to be in Norway, and I can't stress enough how empowering and inspiring this is. You go to these international competitions where masters, they're called masters, and you're a master in sports from 35 years onwards. So you're 35-year-old. But there are guys showing up there, they're 89. They still lift, they still travel to these, foreign countries. They go to the weigh-in. After the weigh-in, they eat their prepared meal, because you don't eat before the weigh-in to weigh as little as possible. They all do this. Sometimes they have trouble moving onto the platform because they're struggling with their gait. But once they stand at the bar, they grab the bar and they lift it, and they keep doing this, no matter their age. And I think this is absolutely beautiful. And I want to be that person. I want to be up there on the lifting platform when I'm 80 and still give my best.
Man, that's incredible. And you're doing it right now. I do want to hear about when you did win that championship. How was that like? What were those emotions? I'm sure it was exciting, but leading up to that, what was it like?
It's interesting because it was I think it was the 5th time that I participated in a European Championship. The first one was like 6 months after I started weightlifting. Because I was strong, and even though my technique was probably pretty poor, I could make like the minimum weight to participate. So this was every year I went to the Europeans, and this was the 5th year. And when I saw the lineup, like the people who were competing against me, I thought, oh, I have a chance. I have a chance. And it's interesting because that caused some weird reaction inside of me. I hadn't, until that point, I hadn't thought of me as someone who can win things, really. Very weird. It was quite, so this competition journey also gives you insights about yourself at any point in time. So I went there, and then I thought, okay, I can do this, but what if I fail? Oh my God, you can always, you could, like the absolute nightmare is to 0, which means you get 3 attempts in every lift. So usually, you start with a safe weight that you can easily lift, and then next attempt you try a little bit more, and then the last attempt you try to do a personal best or something. This is how you structure your competition. But sometimes it happens, on a very bad day that someone doesn't make even one of the 3 lifts that they have. It's just a bad day. It happens, and it's horrible. So there I was, sort of sabotaging myself, thinking, what if I, and then I thought, come on, just as before, focus on the moment. Don't think before, don't think after, just go there, focus on the bar, lift it, and see what you can do. And then it's just the very first lift. So you start with a snatch, which is you have to lift the bar from the floor and lift it over your head in one move. You have 3 attempts, and then you move to the clean and jerk, where you lift the bar, rest it on your shoulders, and then in the second move you lift it overhead. And for me, it's always when I make the first snatch, I sort of relax and I think, okay, I got this. And that's how it felt. I made the first snatch. Then we went through the clean and jerk, and the situation was such that if I made that first clean and jerk, I had won. And it's tricky because you don't want your thoughts to wander. You need to focus and make that lift. And I did. And I think that moment, when I made the lift, when I was still standing on the platform, bar still overhead, waiting for the judges to give you the signal that you can drop it, that was the best moment of all. That's when I knew I had this medal. Afterwards there's a ceremony and they give you the medal and stuff. But this split second where you've made it, this is just fantastic. You feel so happy, so alive, so grateful. So it's like you're really, and this is also something that so many women don't expect or don't think that they have a right to experience when they're older. Yes, you can still win and do stuff and be full of joy and happiness. It's all out there.
Wow. Just like I'm putting myself in your shoes when you were at that moment where you made that lift and you said, this is it, I got it. And to just like flash back and think of all the obstacles you had to overcome and the hardships and just with your health and that what you're doing. It's just a huge testament to all of this hard work that you've had to do and what you've had to endure. And then now you're still competing, which is phenomenal, and you're going to keep competing until you're 89, 90, 100, however long you get to have. And then you have this health coach business that, you're living out this career that you have wanted to do, and it's super important to you. I'd love to have you share with the audience, with the listeners as well, a little bit more about your business, and then we'll wrap up with one more question after that as well. And then where they can, your website, where they can find you.
Okay, so what I think, I don't know if I discovered this, but what helped me, what changed my life was becoming physically strong. So I help women, midlife women, rebuild, reconnect with their muscles, build strength, become strong, muscular, and confident in the process. So it's not a one-stop shop, but it's very close to it. So if you start working on your strength, so many other things will fall in place. So that's what we do. I look exactly at where they are at, and I think this is the big point when it comes to fitness, strength, and midlife women, because there's so many great programs out there, but most of them don't really consider midlife women, like high mileage joints and like limitations that we pick up over the years. So the main part, the very important first part, is a thorough assessment of how how they move, how strong they are, their mobility. And then I design a strength training program for them that they can do 15 minutes a day, because I know everybody's busy, and that will give them results and at their level. So challenging enough, but not overwhelming or boring. And then we complement that with nutrition in a way where we look at what do I actually need to eat. So there's no asking, oh my God, I have to cut out this, I have to stop this, I'm not allowed to eat that. But just asking, what do I need to perform? What does my body need to feel good? And that's the nutrition part. And then there's a lot of support with that, because so many women feel alone or feel that something's wrong with them because they've failed so many diets. And I think it's just a matter of skills and support. So that's the third part. And that way we're just, building strength. And most of the time after 2 weeks of training, there's like this energy boost that my clients feel that just surprises them. Is that, oh my God, I feel so strong. And just, like maybe walking through a store and grabbing some groceries and feeling the connection with their body. So that's what we're working on. It's actually simple because it's really just strength training, but it's very specific to the person, to the individual that comes to me. And I love this. And I you mentioned this before, and we talked about the journalism. And yes, it feels great when you write a great story. I love stories to this day. And when you find the right lead, the right hook, the right, way into it, and then you have, tell a beautiful story and you end it beautifully, it's very satisfying. But nothing beats the smile on a woman's face when she's done her first push-up, for example. That is just so fulfilling and empowering, and really gives you the feeling, that you are changing something for the better on this planet.
Yes, absolutely. Just sounds like a wonderful program. And maybe too, Kim, one of your clients will compete against you in weightlifting. Has that happened yet?
No, because what I do in weightlifting is pretty, I don't know how to call this. It's probably pretty advanced, or it's you need a certain strength. And most women who start working with me come rather from a background of a sedentary life, but really want to build that muscle again and rebuild that connection actually between the brain and the body. I'd love for my clients to graduate to lifting heavy and maybe even doing Olympic weightlifting, but I think it will take some time, and maybe I must take a weightlifting trainer certification for that too.
To have that come true. Well, Kim, where will you share your website and where people can find you on social media as well?
Yes, so you can go to kimrahir.com, so just my name and .com, and on there you can actually find also a health and strength assessment, a free assessment that you can take to give you an idea of where you are at. It's holistically orientated, so it's not just asking you, can you do 5 push-ups, because that's really important that we take into account various aspects of your health and strength, and with the result of that you have an idea where you could start, what your next steps could be. That's on my website, kimrahir.com. You can follow me on Facebook, where I share my weightlifting adventures and free trainings and tips and fun stuff. This also with my name, Kim Rahir. And you can always write me an email at kim@kimrahir.com. I promise that I'll answer.
Perfect. And I'll put all of that in the show notes as well, Kim. Well, Kim, I've just loved your wisdom and just your perspective and insight on everything that you've shared in your life thus far. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my final question, which is a question that I like to ask all of my guests. So if you could encourage one woman who feels blocked or limited to pursue a dream or a goal based on her age or life circumstance that she's been given, what would you tell her?
I would just say, focus on today and on the next small thing that you can do today. Because I think this, and I said this before, the discouragement, the hopelessness, the feeling defeated, it mostly comes from putting ourselves on a timeline where we then think, oh my God, the best days are gone. I don't know what's about to come. But if you focus on today and you do just one thing, and this could be anything. It could be going for a walk. It could be drinking a glass of water. It could be a workout, something that you can do today, and focus on that and get the positive reinforcement that comes from doing something good today. And that way you can create momentum and keep moving forward. Don't worry about tomorrow. Do something right now. It will pay off immediately and in the long term. And, I, for one, know, and I can assure everyone, it's never too late.
Thank you, Kim. Like I said, I just appreciate you spending your time, sharing your wisdom. That is a little piece of nugget. Focus on today. I love it. Absolutely love it. So, Kim, thank you so much for joining me today on the More Than Your Age podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.